Every teacher has had that moment where you spend an hour planning a really great lesson and your students respond with the enthusiasm of people waiting at the DMV. And that raises an important question. Why do students engage deeply in some classrooms and completely check out in others? The answer has a lot to do with classroom community and student motivation. Learning does not happen in isolation. Students learn within classroom communities, and the quality of these communities affects everything from participation to persistence to academic success. Understanding how learning communities and student motivation work together can help teachers create classrooms where students are more engaged, more supported, and more willing to take on challenging work. Positive learning communities do not develop automatically. They are intentionally created through classroom culture, relationships, expectations, and instructional practices. In productive learning communities, students are not simply passive recipients of information. They are encouraged to ask questions, investigate ideas, reflect on experiences, and make sense of what they're learning. Teachers often support this process through strategies that promote student voice and reflection, such as discussion, inquiry activities, or learning journals. Closely connected to learning communities is the concept of student motivation. Motivation is generally discussed in terms of two broad categories: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation occurs when students engage in learning because they find a task interesting, meaningful, or personally satisfying. Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, involves outside influences such as grades, rewards, praise, privileges, or punishments. Teachers frequently use extrinsic motivators in schools, and these tools can influence behavior. However, educational research has consistently highlighted the importance of fostering intrinsic motivation whenever possible. Motivation is also strongly connected to human needs. Needs-based theory suggests that students are motivated by internal pressures and psychological needs. One widely recognized example is Maslow's theory, which proposes that students whose basic needs for safety, security, or belonging are unmet may struggle to focus on higher-level learning goals. Students are also motivated by needs for achievement, affiliation, and influence. They want opportunities to succeed, to belong within a community, and to have some sense of agency or impact within their environment. When classroom experiences support these needs, students are generally more engaged. When those needs are frustrated, involvement and motivation often decline. Cognitive theories of motivation introduce another important distinction: learning goals versus performance goals. Students with learning goals focus on improving their understanding, developing skills, and improving their own performance over time. They tend to view setbacks as signals to adjust their strategies or increase their effort. Students with performance goals, however, are often more focused on comparison with others. Failure may be interpreted as evidence of low ability rather than an opportunity for growth. Because of this, effective teachers often emphasize improvement, growth, and attainable short-term goals that students believe they can successfully accomplish. Of course, teachers are trying to support motivation within classrooms that are highly complex environments. Classrooms function as dynamic ecosystems characterized by multiple activities and rapid decision-making. Teachers manage diverse student backgrounds and simultaneous events. Early experiences within a classroom often shape expectations and interactions throughout the remainder of the school year. Given this complexity, teachers play a major role in intentionally developing classroom communities. The most effective classrooms are often characterized by active learning, collaborative interactions, caring relationships, and authentic learning experiences. Teachers can support motivation through a variety of practical classroom practices. These include establishing clear expectations, checking for understanding, using cooperative learning approaches, monitoring student progress, providing positive encouragement, and assigning work that is appropriately challenging but achievable. Student engagement is strengthened when learners believe that tasks are meaningful, expectations are clear, and success is possible. Teachers can also strengthen intrinsic motivation by connecting learning to students' interests and lived experiences, also incorporating variety and novelty into instruction and providing meaningful feedback. Effective feedback focuses on improvement and strategy rather than simply communicating success or failure. Student voice and classroom influence also matter. Research suggests that students often demonstrate greater satisfaction and persistence when they experience some degree of ownership within the classroom environment. Teachers may support this through opportunities for student feedback or opportunities for choice and participation. An important caution for teachers is that extrinsic rewards do not always increase motivation. In some situations, providing external rewards for tasks that students already find intrinsically interesting can actually reduce students' sense of autonomy and internal motivation. Ultimately, effective teachers work to create environments in which motivation becomes embedded within the culture of the classroom itself. These classrooms are characterized by positive relationships, high expectations, meaningful learning experiences, and strong support for students' psychological needs. Students are more likely to persist when they feel respected in the learning process. Finally, teacher beliefs matter. Teachers who believe that every student can learn, who recognize the diverse perspectives students bring to the classroom, and who intentionally teach to students' strengths are better positioned to create learning environments that promote both engagement and achievement. Next, let's hear from an educator who recently won Teacher of the Year for the inclusive community he's created in his classroom. So, Mr. Sommer, can you tell me how many years and what subjects you've taught?
This is my 5th year teaching. I taught 1 year of 8th grade English, including a 9th grade class that was part of the honors program, and then 4 years of 7th grade English.
What are some things that you do in your classroom to help motivate our kids?
For motivating students, I think the foundation lays with, um, you know, how you view them and what you believe about them. And I lay my foundation as like, I tell them day one, I love you. I said, you don't, we don't know each other yet, but as we get to know each other, like I'm going to let you know, I promise I'm going to love you. That's not going to change. And no matter what happens, I'm still going to love you. And from that foundation, uh, I try to do everything in terms of like, I love you, but because I love you, I'm also going to set high expectations, and I'm also going to set uh, boundaries on what you can and cannot do. And so I'll tell them like, hey, because I love you, I'm doing this. I already told you this what I'm going to do. So if there's any discipline, that's what happens. When it comes to the motivation piece, um, it starts with that from day one, and then I also build in a mixture of like opportunities that they can earn incentives, and I also build in opportunities that they can lose incentives.
What are some incentives you use?
Yeah, so some incentives are like for if it's discipline related, the motivation discipline wise would be losing free sit Friday.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to academic, we do weekly quick checks. So every week we do like a quiz at the end of the week about what we discovered and what we discussed. And I set goals for them every single week. Whichever class reaches the goals the most times, we get a class party that we do. Usually during a work day, I usually do like a work day and party together. So I'll make cookies, I'll make brownies, I'll do ice cream, and so that's like an academic motivation. There's like the discipline motivation, and then throughout it, you know, I think another thing is I try to do all I can to spend time with them, whether that's in the lunchroom, going and having conversation with them, interacting with them. Every time I see them in the hall, no matter who it is, I want to make sure I fist bump and say hello, because I want them to see that they that I truly love them, and I'm not just doing lip service, and I want them to know that I care about them. And so I would like to say I do a lot of motivation in that way, but I really just think it comes down to caring about them more than it is like being a hype man or.
So what do you do if you have a kid in your class that's like really unmotivated and just wants to sleep through class and not do anything?
You know, I tell them I love you, and because I love you, I really want like I'm going to give you stuff that I don't think is purposeless. Like everything I do, I want to make sure it's intentional towards. It's got to be intentional towards leading you towards something in a better light in the future. So a skill like communication, a skill like writing, or it's going to be something I find is going to be engaging and entertaining to you. And if there's a kid that puts their head down and says they're not, I'm going to pull them aside and be like, look, I really think this is beneficial to you for this X, Y, and Z. This is why I'm doing it. I don't give you fluff work. If they choose to keep putting their head down, I tell them like, this is still O for me. This is like the high expectations, and if you're not going to do it, then I can't force you to do anything that you are choosing not to do. But I'm going to let your parents know that this is what you're not going to do this.
Loop them in.
Yeah. So I'll loop them in and say, this, I did everything I can to try to motivate them, but it could be a bad day. Sometimes I'll pull them aside and say, hey, let's have a conversation. It could be a bad day. It could be something happened at home. It could have been they were at a bus for an hour and a half in the freezing cold and they did not feel like coming to school today. So I usually take that in consideration because sometimes they'll come back the next day in a better mood. I'm like, hey, you missed this yesterday. Are you feeling good? Like, how are we feeling about this today? And they're like, oh, sure. And they still said, no, I'm not doing that. And it's like, all right, well, you got 3 more days and then it's overdue. So I take the realization that I can't get everybody to do every single thing. And I have to accept that.